Hi,
Hey,
welcome to today's episode.
thanks.
So, a couple of things that I wanted to ask you, but before we started recording, you asked me what's been on my mind lately, and I said grief has been on my mind lately, just because of some stuff that's been going on in our personal lives. And I guess I was looking at it from a stereotypically male perspective, but I guess it's just people. A lot of people seem to power through it, almost like not allowing themselves to process the emotion. And I've noticed quite often at funerals, you see people who are crying, and then you see people who are obviously really sad, who are very obviously trying to hold back the tears. And I'm like, if you're not going to let yourself cry at a fucking funeral, then when are you? And yeah, so it's made me think about a few things, like why do we develop this thing of you shouldn't cry, you shouldn't not even express the emotions, but you shouldn't experience them. You should stop yourself from experiencing emotions. And then it made me think about what happens if we don't and we just hold it. And it made me think that I should probably bring that up because I'm sure you have helped people through these things and helped people through grief. And I'm curious if you have sort of any general thoughts about what I just said.
I actually remember 2 funerals that we've been to. There was one funeral which was probably your grandmother or grandfather's funeral. And there was another funeral that was my grandmother's. We've been to 3 funerals together. 2 of your grandparents and 1 of mine.
Also cousin.
And your cousin. Yeah, 4 funerals we've been to together. I remember 2 funerals or 3 you didn't cry and 1 you did. And I think it's because you had done a bit of work on the crying thing.
Which one did I cry at?
My grandma's you teared at, Rachel's you teared at as well, I think. But you didn't sob. I think you cried. And I think it was because there was like a consciousness there before. There's like, I think you thought you shouldn't let out your tears or that you should be stronger, something like that. And then I think you did some work on it and decided actually it's good to let them out. And if you feel it, I think you make more effort to try and let it. But I think it's a consciousness thing, right? When you go out into public, I think a lot of people have this thought of it's inconvenient to others if I cry because it makes them uncomfortable. I know you have that for sure in terms of I don't want to inconvenience others. I don't want to make them have a difficult moment because of me. In some circumstances, you're very considerate like that, like in a restaurant or something like that. Last time you would be very happy to say whatever, whereas now you're kind of like, oh, it's okay, just don't say anything. So I think it's a consciousness thing.
Like how self-conscious I feel
towards others, like how considerate you are being. I think I cry in public because I don't really care if people see me crying. Like in that moment, whatever I'm crying about is more important than how I think other people will feel.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because it's obviously a good thing. It's a well-socialized thing to learn to be considerate. But then if you take it too far and it becomes so collectivist in your mindset that no, I cannot show my suffering outwardly because of the impact that it will have on other people. I don't know if collectivist is the right word, but you know what I mean, right?
Yeah.
Then it's going too far, right?
Yeah, like some things I think you ought to be considerate to others about, but then crying is one of those weird ones where it's like, actually, people probably won't mind if you do it, but you think they will. You think it'll make them feel worse. But actually, I think people feel better when you cry.
I don't think in the case of crying, I don't think it was that I would make other people feel bad in some way. I think more so it's an embarrassment thing. I think for men and experiencing emotions in public and expressing them in public or even with their partner, or maybe that's the reason why we struggle to connect with our guy groups of friends in deep ways where we actually feel emotionally supported is because of embarrassment or potential embarrassment.
You feel, I think a lot of men feel weak when they're seen crying. Like somehow if they cry, then it negates all the providing that they do and all the protecting that they're able to do is somehow negated in a moment of...
Like suddenly you're no longer strong as a human being. Yeah, that probably comes from, as a boy, you get told not to cry and just sort of like grow up and toughen up and just deal with it.
And to be fair, I do know many women clients who feel the same. It just depends in the culture you're brought up in, right?
Culture meaning at home with the family.
But I think a lot of women, we feel it's more normal to just have a cry with a friend. It's almost something that, like for Faye and I, we purposely meet each other to have a cry. We'll tell each other, I need to have a cry. And then we'll help each other have a cry if we can.
Yeah, I think maybe from the male perspective, there's also a fear that it is embarrassment, it's fear of judgment, and also you don't want people to look at you like you're performing. You don't want to be looked at like you're crying or you're sharing.
Being extra.
Right? That it's performative versus what it actually is. Because we all know examples of people who are really annoying because they perform whatever emotion that they're feeling and they take it too far. And that type of shit makes guys roll their eyes. They're like, I just fucking stop. And we like over-index on that. Like we don't want to appear as that.
And probably when you're in public, whether it's a funeral or you're walking on the street or you're in the bus or whatever, you might feel like crying. And then before it comes out, you're like, oh, but then this, and then you start thinking instead of feeling, right? Whereas if you're by yourself or with someone that you really trust and nobody else, then you probably don't overthink it. You just let it come freely. Right?
Yeah, Marcus Aurelius has this quote. I'm gonna butcher it, but basically talking about how when you grieve in private, it's very different from how you grieve in public. That when you cry, when you're on your own, it's quite soft and it's quite calm and it's quite quick. Whereas when you grieve amongst other people, you tend to perform. I don't think he used the word perform, but he had noticed a contrast, and I think maybe that's quite a male perspective as well, right? But yeah, I don't actually know how many men cry alone in the quiet of their rooms. But yeah, we definitely don't have the same tendency that women have to, I need a cry. So I'm reaching out to you because I need a cry.
Although you have said to me more recently that you've been trying to have a cry here and there, right?
It's not difficult for me anymore. Yeah, like a nice moment with one of the kids or one of the more intense breathwork practices that raises some sort of emotion within me. Yeah, it's quite within reach now. Which I guess
not one of the situations with me. So something I've been thinking about recently is how, as a therapist, I spend all my day empathizing, right? And you probably remember that when you first met me, I was probably one of the most sociable people you ever knew.
Yeah.
I was always full of energy. I would make friends with like the most random person on the street. And strangely, over time, what I've realized is after a day of therapy with people, I really don't want to go hang out with more people and talk to more people. And I find like my energy to go deep with people and be curious about their lives is much narrower now. And so I think it's an interesting topic to think about, especially with people who are in the helping profession. Not even in the helping profession, but even if you're just a person who cares a lot and you listen a lot, or you take care of people around you a lot, you look after them. A question for you that I wanted to ask you is, do you often feel like you wish you had more energy to help? Do you often feel yourself being with a lack of energy to help others?
Yeah. Definitely. I think I have a history of going too far with trying to help people. And so part of it is just like lessons learned and, not wanting to get too involved with other people's shit. And also, I need to save people, I think. There's a bit of ego in that too, right? There's a bit of like, who the fuck are you to save someone if they're suffering from something? And I also, at a deeper level, think that people can only be helped if they are ready to be helped and they want the help. And I think some of the help I was willing to give in the past, it got weird because I wanted to help them more than they wanted to be helped.
Themselves.
Yeah, and to help themselves also. There's a bunch of that mixed into it. But I'm curious about your situation with feeling like you don't have as much social energy for other people. Do you think this is a bad thing? Do you think this is the occupation wearing you down? Or is it simply a capacity issue and it's part of life, and also you've got 2 kids now and you have, other stuff that you're putting your time into? Is it you realizing that if I go do that and drain the rest of my battery there with new people, then what time am I losing out on with my kids? What connection am I losing out on with them? Is that it? Or do you think it's something like not so good about the helping professions?
I definitely think it's a capacity issue. I think as you get into the age of getting married and having a family, people's circle gets smaller and smaller. And you also have grown wiser. So you know the sort of people that you don't want to waste your time on. The people who will drain you versus the people who energize you. So I definitely am more deliberate about who I spend my time with. I also think it's true what you said, that I know I don't have as much energy, that I want to save energy for the people who are most important to me. But I also think that being a therapist, it's like you have to go deep with people all the time. And that is very exhausting. I think the thing that can help is that when the session ends, you gotta pass the baton back to them, right? It's like during the session, you hold it together for those moments, or you even sometimes have to teach them how to hold it or build the muscle that lets them hold it. But then after that, you have to let go and be like, right, this is this person's responsibility now. And I have to trust that they do it. And if they don't, I have to be okay with them.
If they don't, you have to realize it's on them. And it's not your fault if they were not able to do the stuff that you hoped they would do.
And if they crumble and it causes a divorce or it causes a trip to the hospital or whatever, it could be quite extreme sometimes, but you have to trust that that is part of their life consequence that they need. And if someone is constantly bubble wrapping you and trying to save you from it, then you can't learn.
Yeah, you can't deprive people of those lessons. Like, you do what you can to help because they've sought out help from you. But if the cards are just that they're going to fuck up in that way, then yeah, you go.
And if you keep going beyond the relationship between client and therapist, you actually make it worse for them as well, because they then have a dependence on you. Like they don't know how to fix it themselves. Right?
Yep. So which is not the point. The whole point is come and get some advice, some framework, some tools, but it's about building your toolkit so when you're out there in the world doing your thing, you can handle your shit. Right? That is, in an ideal world, what we would try to do, right? I feel like there's a lesson here that applies even when you're just helping a friend, right? A lot of people have this thing. In fact, I just got into a pretty intense discussion with someone quite close who was asking me for advice, and I gave advice. And he came back to me and he was kind of like, didn't know how to handle the situation and kind of, high strung about what was going on in life. And he said, look, Ian, thanks for your advice. I just wanted to say, if I don't take your advice, please don't be mad at me, because like there's so much context that you don't have and all that. And I had to stop him. I said, look, I get that a lot of people in the world are like that. The way I see it, you come to me for an opinion, you explicitly ask me for an opinion. I'm going to give you my opinion with absolutely no expectation that you follow through on what I think you should do, because this is your life and your decision to make. And I realize there's a big gray area there for people, right? People do have this thing of, I already told him what to do and he hasn't done it yet. How many times do you hear parents say that, friends say that about their friends, partners say that about their partners? I already told him what he should do and he still hasn't done it. I've told him 100 times what he should do. I think it's a healthier way to look at it, like it is their life to live and their decision to make, right?
Mm-hmm. But people get afraid of you being mad at them, or afraid of causing someone to feel anger or jealousy or pain, anxiety, worry, right? When, in my opinion, unless you're purposefully causing them to, like, I'm going to do this thing just to piss you off, if you're not doing that and you're just telling them something that feels true to you, or you're doing something that feels like it's aligned to your values, and you're not meaning to hurt them, then I think it is part and parcel of how relationships go. Certain things will affect you and make you feel some sort of difficult emotion, and there's nothing wrong with that. When you love someone or you care for someone, someone's important to you, inevitably something you say or do will hurt them. So I think that people could be more ready for that to happen and not as worried about the people that and their reactions. You're not responsible for other people's reactions.
Yeah, I guess the conversation has kind of split into two, right? So we are talking about from the person who is trying to, I mean, it's kind of like two different situations, right? Because I'm talking about if someone has asked you for advice, and then you give him advice and then get pissed off when he doesn't take your advice. But then it's like the same thread that goes into what you're talking about, but from the other person's perspective, right? Yeah, I'm trying to figure out what this thread is, I guess.
Well, there's two consciousnesses there, right? One is, I'm afraid you'll be mad at me if you don't take my advice. And your version of it, what were you afraid of? Or were you thinking about what the other person would feel? Were you being conscious when you gave him the advice you gave?
Oh, I see what you mean, actually. Not in this particular situation, but definitely in other situations. Yeah, in the past, I've definitely had situations where I've been hesitant to give people advice because I am worried it's going to hurt their feelings, it's going to piss them off, it's going to make them feel disrespected, and then because of that, they, whatever, don't want to be friends with me or some shit like that. But given the chaos that has ensued in life in the last like 4 or 5 years, I'm actually all the way on the other side of it now. The pendulum probably swung too far in me, where I don't really give a fuck now about how people react to it. If I care about them and they're headed in a direction, I'm willing to be wrong. And in not like a shitty way, but I'm very willing to just say it like how I see it, with the caveat of, look, I might be completely off base here, and if that is true, just tell me to fuck off. Like, I would say this to my guy friends, just tell me to fuck off if I'm wrong, but I need to call this out because this is what I see, and then I'll just say it. Because I've had a few examples where I didn't say for so long, and then it just becomes so fermented and convoluted, and like, it goes too far, right?
Yeah, I think it's nice if we can trust that people, especially people we're close to, will know that we don't have any harm intended, right? And so you work accordingly. Even if you are hurt by something that someone said, a lot of things can be hurtful, but you don't need to assume that the person purposely hurt you. In fact, I think most people would not assume that. So therefore you can feel brave saying what you feel, because most people that care about you would try and take it on board, I think.
Well, I think the take it on board part is troublesome as well, right? Because I think when people have the expectation that their advice will be taken on board, or the expectation that, oh shit, now they've given me the advice, I have to do what they say, I think that plays a part too.
Yeah, but I don't think that should be the case. Like, I think this is something that I talk about with my clients a lot, is you know yourself best. And even that being said, you don't even know yourself that well, and we're always learning about ourselves more and more. But don't take other people's opinion over your own. Like, you have to listen to them, understand how much validity their advice holds, because they may not be an expert. If they're an expert in that topic, then yeah, maybe their opinion holds more water. But if they're not, like, someone's telling you about relationships and they've like massively effed up so many of their relationships, then maybe you shouldn't be listening that hard, right? But you also have to match it with your personal situation. And I think everyone should be ready that advice given is listened to some degree, but isn't necessarily used 100%, right?
Yeah, I think that's a huge point. I think in this age of social media as well, and an unlimited amount of information and unlimited amount of expert opinions out there, it is so easy to wear someone else's opinion as yours. And I think the skill of taking in the information that you have and sitting down, or in my case, lying down and looking at the ceiling and just thinking in long form, like in full sentences, trying to figure out how I actually feel about this and what my opinion is very difficult to carve out time for. It gives you like a window where you feel quite aligned and quite certain, which counts for a lot, right? When you're dealing with something difficult. Yeah. I think there is another part there as like a continuation. When something like this happens, people often go like, you know, advice was given, some was taken, some was not, and now they're like, ugh, like, I can't believe he didn't do what I thought he should, or this person now is pissed off because I can't believe he said that to me, and that type of shit. A lot of people would take that situation and then just like let the relationship melt, like, fuck that person, like, I've cut him out of my life because one thing was said that was off base, right? And I mean that's quite sad as well, right? Because we're going to fuck up. It's very human to wear our own goggles of biases and context and experience. And just because I said something that you don't agree with, or that was objectively not true in your reality, doesn't mean I was trying to be a dick. You know what I mean? In fact, like you said just now, I was probably trying to help, but just not in the best way. Not in the way that you wanted to be helped, and not in a way that you asked for. Doesn't mean I'm a bad person and not worth being a friend to, I guess.
And also from the other person's perspective, the one who's getting advice, right? There's so many things behind the scenes that other people can't understand. No matter how much you tell them about a situation, there's things that make it so difficult to take that advice sometimes. Like, we all have that friend. We've probably been that friend at points as well, right? Where everyone's like, why do they just keep doing this again and again and again, right? And it's because there's old patterns that can't be replaced yet because something is holding on to it, right? Yeah. One of the things that came up that I took note of when you were describing your current sort of pattern of not having the social battery to do other stuff, and maybe it is you have different priorities, you're a bit wiser now and stuff like that. It made me think of a discussion that's quite sort of prevalent online at the moment about empathy versus compassion. And I think part of the issue here is that there's various ways to define empathy and various ways to define compassion. And sort of like pop psych breakdown of it currently is that
there's a version of this like feeling where you expose yourself to wearing the other person's feelings and you basically experience them with them. And there's a version of this where you can go through you can feel for the person and, like you said, hold the baton with them. And then when it's over, you pass the baton back to them, and then you're sort of in the clear, and you don't have to carry that with you. And to me, my understanding of it is that it's about boundaries. And one of the exercises I learned with one therapist I was working with in a particularly bad time where there was kind of like a bad actor who was very volatile at the time. She would literally walk me through a few different visualizations. One was a shield that didn't work so well, and then it became like a force field. And I thought this was ridiculous shit, right? Because it was like a legit therapist teaching me, like, what the fuck is this? But in those intense conversations with a volatile person, when I managed to learn this odd skill of like putting the force field up, and we had our own language about it, right? Where I could receive the information, but the intensity of the emotion and the anger would just bounce off, and I would visualize it bouncing off. That's not going to hurt me. I'm not going to absorb that, but I'm going to take in the information. It actually worked for me. So I don't know if all of this, it seems to me like all of this is like wrapped up into the same thing. And it comes to mind because you brought up like in helping professions, and a lot of people that work with like people in pain, or who are caregivers, or who are parents of like difficult children and stuff, they're like carrying this stuff and they're absorbing hurt, and like maybe there's something here to discuss. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think we do need to learn how to put on, I usually say, protective gear with certain people, right? If you take everything verbatim, it's not actually what the person wants you to be taking in anyway. You know, I mean, very easy example. When I'm pent up because I haven't told you about a bunch of things that I'm upset with you about, and then I start, you give me the space to tell you one thing, I just start word vomiting like everything I can possibly think of. And if you took it exactly at the level I was giving it, that's not actually what I want you to take in. It is said with a lot of intensity, right? Because it's, in a way, it's venting, right? So I think you have to scale it depending on the person. And you also need to try to hold the space for the emotion to be there, but then find a way to understand the most important bits that they want you to take away from that situation.
Is that actually what the term holding space means? I've never understood that term. I was like, the fuck are you talking about holding space?
The way I like to say...
But that makes sense. It's a space for the emotion to be, and you can be around it, but you don't have to like take it. Yeah, you don't have to be in it.
So it's like you're holding a space, right? Like,
that makes sense.
For the emotion to be there, but not like...
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I feel like that's a very helpful visual, right? So it's not just like if you're in a helping profession and having to talk to people who are dealing with serious shit all the time. You're maybe just talking to a friend. You don't have to you don't have to be a full empath about it, and like, now you can't sleep at night because you're worried about your friend.
In fact, I feel it's unhelpful to be that sort of person.
How so?
If you are the sort of person that everything somebody tells you, or you read the news and you hear something terrible that's happened, and then you just can't stop thinking about it, and you keep thinking, oh, I feel so awful that I'm then now living my life in this state of freeze where I can't live, I can't do anything, I can't sleep, I can't eat. I think it's unhelpful to be that sort of person, and you will be less effective at putting good into the world if you take it on that strongly.
Yeah. Just out of curiosity, do you agree with the sort of loose definition of empathy versus compassion that I'm kind of dancing around here? Or is that not actually a helpful way to look at?
I think there's just too many definitions for words out there, so we just have to define exactly what we're speaking about.
And so but if you were dealing with a client who maybe had a pattern of, I don't know, people pleasing, and maybe you've covered some stuff with them about how they've grown up and all that, but their day-to-day behavior is such that when their husband is mad about something, instead of fight, flight, or freeze, they choose fawn, and then they just kind of cower and like wear the person's emotion. And then basically the way I see it, maybe this is wrong, you base your state of calm and happiness on how that person feels. And once they feel okay, then you're okay. How would you talk about this concept of empathy and shield or protective gear and all that with them?
Well, when your partner or your friend is struggling, you struggle right alongside them. So you're falling to the depths of how they feel, meaning maybe you can't sleep, you can't stop crying, you can't breathe well, your body feels awful, right? You keep thinking about the situation over and over and over. If you're doing it to that extent, then there's no way for you to be that helpful in that moment.
What's a better way to be then?
A better way to be is to hold the space for it. So tell me more. Okay, how are you feeling? Okay, what's that like? How do you think I could be helpful here? What do you think you need right now? Right? And so it's letting them express whatever it is that they're feeling, not judging, like making sure they don't feel judged in any way, making sense of why they feel that way. Oh, that kind of makes sense because, like, didn't you say that how you grew up kind of makes you sensitive to this sort of thing? So makes sense you might feel that way, right? Is that why you feel that way? Helps them make more sense of the emotion, and then be like, all right, well, what do you think? Do you feel okay now that you've talked about it? Or do you need something else? Like, and so you're helping them think about it.
You're helping them navigate the whole difficult situation without taking on the full set of responsibility and emotions associated with it.
And I feel like if you do it that way, then hopefully what happens is that in a moment where you crumble and you're at your worst and you're experiencing it full on, that person doesn't go to where you are either. They can stay in a place that's more neutral so that they can then help you. Because if you're both crumbling and you can't think at all and you're both crying your faces off, neither person can think of what to do.
Yeah, and I think if it's something really, really difficult and it's like deep grief, or it's, I don't know, a loss of someone really special, or you lost your job, or something like really life-shifting in a bad way, if you both fall apart because you just take on the other person's emotions completely and accept it as your responsibility to ride that with them, then you're going to have a really, really, really difficult time. Actually, maybe what the relationship needs in that situation is for one person to be able to like hold space and help navigate, but carry the torch of like, look, I still have my job. I'll cover these things, and you know, it's okay. Like I'll handle all these things as you kind of go through the process that you need to go through because you're grieving or whatever it is. You might be sleeping like shit, but I'm going to sleep well, and I'm going to protect my mental health. I'm going to make sure I still go to yoga. I'm going to make sure that you can't be a support network for me. So I'm being proactive and letting my friends know. And so like I'll lean on them a little bit more. That's like a more mature way to go through this process, right? Because especially past like 35, like the life shit gets really intense. And sometimes we go through these things, right? And yeah, I didn't even think about it from that perspective until you were talking about it. Like it's like risk management to learn the skill of not going deep into your partner's emotions, right?
Yeah, or friends or anybody.
Or friends. Yeah.
It's a funny thought, right? But we often are so busy looking at what other people are going through and trying to help other people, or some of us maybe judging other people, basically looking at other people's situations. But if we just looked at our own situation and worked really hard on doing our own thing as well as we could, if everybody did that, then the whole world would probably be in a better off spot.
Yeah, that's quite a good thought exercise. Instead of this external focus on how everybody else is messing up and how shit they are at whatever they're doing.
Or what they need to do better or differently.
Let's just work on our little thing.
Yeah. So then if you used an analogy for it, it's almost like if everyone was just driving their own car properly instead of like, hey, stay in your line. Hey, what are you doing? Like that. Oh, shoot, that guy got an accident. Then if everyone just focused hard, then we'd all be like less accidents would be happening, probably.
Yeah, maybe. It makes sense to me.
But
it makes sense to me.
That being said, we are social creatures, and I think we're just concerned. You can't 100% be unconcerned.
Yeah, I think the concern is one side of it. I think it's probably true that we are quite critical externally of like other people's bullshit and what they need to fix. Oh, one thing that I find hard to reconcile is I think we've also gotten quite, I don't know if this is too judgy. I think we've also gotten quite bad at living in the muck of whatever it is that we're going through. I remember when COVID hit and my business was struggling at the time, and I was sitting at dinner with your grandma at your old house before she passed, and everybody else had left the dinner table, and she could see that I was really sort of like bothered and troubled. And she's super sweet, right? And quite intuitive. So she asked me like, well, what's going on? What's happening? How come you look so troubled or so stressed, I think. I was like, oh, there's this crisis going on now. So I think my business, blah, 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 blah. And then she kind of chuckled in the way that she does. She says, crisis? And then she looked, it was like a movie moment. She looked down at the dinner table where there was more food than we could eat. And then she looked up at the ceiling, and then she's like, you call this a crisis? And then she started telling me about World War II, and it was a great conversation because it snapped me out of my like, oh, everything sucks, like, oh my goodness, like the world is gonna end, kinda. But actually, my world was not going to end. Maybe a project that I'm working on that I put a lot of effort into might end, but it didn't mean that like life was over, right? Like, and you're talking about a person here who is maybe the happiest person that I've ever met, like almost delusionally so.
Even though she's had many people in her life die.
She had so many people really close to her pass away. I remember a few months before she passed, having a conversation with her, and she told me, yeah, she's kind of looking forward to it because she said, I know so many more people who have died than are alive. So I just feel like I get to see them soon. I'm like, what a good attitude to have. But there are examples of generations where you just figured it out and you went through hard shit, and when things were not going well, you had the skill of sticking it out. And what I'm trying to like segue into is that there's some research now on basically like what's becoming the moral acceptance of divorce. And this is American data, but it's something like 70% of the population is now at ease with the idea of divorce. And on one hand, I think it's a good thing, because if you're not happy in your situation, you should feel the agency to get out of it. But the follow-up to that is many divorcees are choosing to be more open and actively celebratory about their transition in life. And it made me think of, I wouldn't just not, first we're spoiled for choice because we're connected and we can find people online by swiping. But are we just like not good at doing the difficult work? Have we been sold a dream by Disney of what a marriage should be, and it should be like rainbows and fucking hearts and like no arguments? Have we just lost the skill of fighting it out because there's good to come from the work? What do you think?
I mean, I think I can see both sides being good. I feel that people who stick in relationships, even though they're really awful, I want them to have that option to be able to choose for themselves a better life, right? And if you keep saying to yourself, oh, I'll be weak if I exit this, like I should be able to stay in the muck and just get through this. But if what you're getting through is daily abuse, emotional abuse, or someone making you feel really bad about yourself day after day, or you just have these communication patterns where you trigger them and they trigger you, and it's just you've gone for all the therapy and it's still not working. I think it's good for people to have an option, to have another chance at a good partnership, or even life without a partner, maybe. But
and to be fair, now that you talk about that, I can think of 3 examples of people we know who are much happier now post-divorce, and some in new relationships, some not, but just having a much better time in life.
Yeah. So sometimes there's a right moment, right?
Yeah.
But then, I also agree with you that it's nice to see that you're in the muck of it and be okay with being in the muck of it, and just say, all right, that's just how it is right now. And I am smart enough to know it's not going to stay the same forever.
Yeah.
And I'm smart enough to know there's a value of consistency and stability and safety, and someone who's seen me through the worst of it and the best of it. And so even if right now I'm really annoyed and don't like them that much, it's okay, right? It doesn't need to be perfect right now.
Did you feel like giving up when I was like in the hospital and not there for a few months, and kind of like, then you had the 1 kid by yourself?
I don't think so. I think I often had the thought of, wow, like I never knew that I would experience this moment of feeling like I am a single parent to this child. Like there were moments where I was really felt like that.
For like 4 or 5 months there, it was like that. Yeah.
So I definitely had moments of like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe that I'm here now. But I refused to think of quitting. My thought was just like, I gotta get through this. I gotta keep doing like step after step to just get through it. And I was scared. I was really scared that you wouldn't come back out of things. But you slowly did. And so every time there was a bit of a shift, then it would give me a little bit more hope. We don't have that much time left, but kind of related to this, right? You kind of touched on it just now. Like if people are in bad relationships, you want them to know that they have a way out and that there's life after, and it's like you'll find a way, right? Made me think of this other thing that I wanted to talk about today. The single best predictor of a long, healthy, happy life is high quality relationships, and the primary relationship being the most important one in that scenario. But the opposite is also true, that if your primary relationship is really toxic and really negative, and obviously if it's abusive and stuff like that, it's one of the worst things for your health. So I think, one, it brings my attention to how important that decision is, but it also brings my attention to, like, if it really is that important, if your primary relationship really is that important, it seems ridiculous to not put at least as much thought and intention into the relationship than you do with your fucking career, right? But I don't think people realize that. I don't think people take the same seriousness to it. What do you think? I think people assume that relationships should be easy. It's one of the most common things I hear in couples therapy is, if I have to try that hard, then it shouldn't be that way. You know, it's like
where does that come from?
I suppose people watch a lot of movies and think that things are smooth when there's love involved. And I think it's the opposite. I think,
or they're thinking about the first year together and like everything was smooth then. Right.
And so why is it so different now? Right.
Because real life.
And I think,
what are some like broad strokes that you kind of help people through when they have that sort of mindset that it should be easy? If it's this much effort, then it's not right for me. How do you help them get some clarity there of, well, there's a different way to see this?
I think what I usually share with people is that what you put in is what you will get out, right? Like you can put in very little, but then you won't feel very connected. But when you struggle together and you work hard together, and you make effort and you see the other person making effort, it develops your love for them.
And when you're vulnerable together and you share the ways that you want to grow and you support each other in growing in those ways.
Yeah.
I can see that.
So the more you put in, the more you get out of it.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of guys struggle with that. I feel like a lot of guys struggle with, we will go very far out of our way to, in our minds, put all this effort into creating the ideal life for my wife and my kids, right? There's all these things I'm going to do. I can't wait until they see all these things and they have no idea. And you try so hard and then you forget about this.
And you forget that all your wife wants is for you to sit and listen and hold space for them and validate all the things they're feeling, right? That's the perennial issue, right? Is that husbands are trying so hard, or, one partner is trying so hard to be the provider and make this perfect situation, but they miss out that all their partner wants is that listening ear, to be held, to be heard and seen, right?
Yeah, and on the other side, it's like, I try so hard and I don't even feel appreciated.
Yeah.
And that's not actually true either. It's not that. It's just that if you met in the middle sometimes, then it might be a non-issue. You might actually get support for all the effort you are putting in, right? Because it's not like people aren't stupid. It's not like they don't see what you're trying to do. And like, obviously there's some gratitude for, you're trying to set us up in a really good way. Thank you. But also, where the fuck are you? Right? Like, yeah. And I think once you have kids, if you pay attention, they don't care about that type of holiday, that type of hotel, or whatever you have in your mind.
They'll be happy with just going down to the Longtang and doing some drain fishing.
Yeah, they just want to be with you. They just want your presence, right? And I think that's it's such an important shift, because if you have that and that is strong, and then you add the other stuff, like that is the sweet spot that you want to aim for, not I'm going to go build this and then finally everyone will be happy. Like, it's not the right mindset. Yeah, I think more guys are starting to realize that. And I think more guys are starting to understand that there's layers to the connection and happiness that open up doors that they haven't had the tools to sort of like unlock, right? And I think, one of the good things about social media maybe is that, more men are opening up to that. I'm quite into this idea of the relationships and the relationship, that primary relationship and the connectedness with kids and family unit, all this shit, right? But what if people don't have a primary partner? Does that mean they don't get access to this richness of connection and feedback and life experience and joy? And I have it written down here, the single best predictor of a long, healthy, happy life is the quality of your close relationships. And for most adults, the central relationship is the most important one, and that's their partner. What if you don't have that?
Well, most people who don't have a primary partner have really close friends or really good close family members, right? And I guess if you don't have either of those, you end up being very, very good of a friend to yourself, right? That's what I would guess. I don't actually know that many people who don't have a primary partner. The clients that I know who don't have a primary partner do have close friends, colleagues.
And so as long as you invest in those and you get the support that you need, it's kind of the same effect. It's not like you have to have a primary relationship to be happy.
Yeah. I mean, I know people who don't have primary relationships that are happy. Yeah.
Do you think you could be happy without a primary relationship? No? What if you didn't have a primary relationship, but you had your kids?
Probably be okay, but I'm sure I would still want a partner at some point.
Why is that?
Because I don't think it's fair to your kids to put it on them.
Oh, that's true.
Right? Like, they will grow up and need their own primary relationship. So you'd be codependent if you did that on your children.
Okay. What was the show that you were watching just before this?
The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives.
So for everyone that doesn't know, Alex is really into reality TV. So
it's research.
So we thought that a fun segment to end each episode with would be her explaining something that's going on there, and if she could just say one thing to one of those people to help them out in some way, what would it be?
Probably be to Demi. Demi.
Wait, is that a guy or a girl?
It's a girl.
Demi.
Demi. She's one of the wives. She keeps going berserk on people whenever she feels as though they're saying something that goes against what she said. And I just want to say to her, you shoot yourself in the foot every time you start attacking these people. Because then as soon as you're attacking them, who's going to be listening to you when you have a sword in their face going like that, right? You've got to put it down, calm down. And then people are going to listen to your opinion, because all you really want is for your opinion to be heard, for the things that you're trying to say for them to hear you. And you're making it so hard for them to hear you because you got a sword pointing in their face.
Yeah, so the opinion is valid. You should get to express it, but the current tool that you're using, the vehicle, is just shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you figure out a different tool, then people will listen, maybe. All right.